Liberals' increasing bloodlust for unborn babies is almost always a terrible thing. Now, however, there seems to be one exception to that rule, and that would be presidential candidate RFK Jr.'s recent endorsement of a all the way up until the moment of birth.
So in other words, keeping it as is with Roe versus Wade having been overturned and leaving it up to the states to determine if and when a woman can have an abortion.
No, I wouldn't leave it to the states.
You wouldn't, right?
No, I would.
You would say completely, it's up to the woman.
My belief is we should leave it to the woman. We shouldn't have government involved.
Even if it's full term?
Even if it's full term.
Okay.
Even if it's full term. Obviously an extremely evil position and an incoherent one. If the government doesn't have a legitimate role in prosecuting murder, the government doesn't have a legitimate role in anything. If the government should stay out of the most basic aspects of justice, what should the government stay in? Nothing. And Kennedy obviously doesn't apply this rule across the board. He's a liberal who thinks the government ought to do all sorts of things, just not protect innocent little babies from being butchered. So how is this stance a good thing? It's a good thing because it makes this election even clearer than it already was. I don't think any serious conservative or even center-right Republican ever really considered voting for RFK over Trump. I know we were told, RFK, he might pull votes from conservatives. I never really bought that. If any of those people ever did consider voting for RFK over Trump, I think that moment has passed. Bobby Kennedy is, as he has always been, a man of the left. Bobby Kennedy, as I've said from the beginning, pulls many more votes from Biden than he does from Trump. Kennedy is not a political problem for Trump. He's a political problem for Biden. And as libs become increasingly disillusioned with Joe Biden and his countless failures, they will have a choice between two candidates in November. Republicans will be unified behind the only real right-wing candidate in the race. And that is fine by me. I'm Michael Knowles. This is The Michael Knowles Show. Welcome back to the show. Princeton liberals have gone on hunger strike to protest the state of Israel. And now they're holding a press conference with bullhorns to cry about how hungry they are. We'll get to that in just a little bit. First, though, the libs are furious with Joe Biden. Biden obviously has alienated the American right and much of the center, but the libs are furious with him too. And they're furious with him because of his handling of the war in Gaza. They're furious with him over his handling of Ukraine to a lesser degree. And they're furious with him over his failures on the economy, because his failures on the economy are probably most likely to destroy the Democrats' chances in November. Here is CNN, Aaron Burnett of CNN, grilling Biden on his economic failures.
When you talk about the economy, of course, it is by far the most important issue for voters. It's also true right now, Mr. President, that voters by a wide margin trust Trump more on the economy. They say that in polls. And part of the reason for that may be the numbers. And you're aware of many of these, of course. The cost of buying a home in the United States is double what it was when you look at your monthly costs from before the pandemic. Real income, when you account for inflation, is actually down since you took office. Economic growth last week, far short of expectations. Consumer confidence, maybe no surprise, is near a 2-year low. With less than 6 months to go to Election Day, are you worried that you're running out of time to turn that around?
We've already turned it around. Look at the Michigan survey. For 65% of American people think they're in good shape economically. They think the nation's not in good shape, but they're personally in good shape. The polling data has been wrong all along. You know, how many, you guys do a poll at CNN, how many folks you have to call to get one response? The idea that we're in a situation where things are so bad, the folks that, we've created more jobs.
So Biden is not as swift as he used to be, and he just gave two answers which contradict each other. Either one of those answers might have plausibly allowed him to skirt that devastating question from CNN, but together they don't really work. CNN says, hey, here is a litany of economic indicators. You're failing on all of them. How are you going to turn this around? He says, no, listen. There was a poll that just came out, said that people feel good about how their personal finances are going. And also all the polls are wrong. Wait, hold on. No, my proof. Hold on, listen here, Jack. Come on. Stick around there, Corn Pop. My proof that the economic indicators don't matter is that the polls say people are happy about it. And all the polls are wrong. The polls have been wrong from the beginning. Okay, so let's go back to all those economic indicators then and show how you've totally failed on the economy. So he pulls out this one poll, says people feel good about their personal finances, or at least 65% of people do, even though they know that the nation's economy is collapsing. And then I think he knows that's not very persuasive to people. So then he has to fall back on the last refuge position, which is, well, the polls are fake. Now, Republicans sometimes say the polls are fake. Everybody says the polls are fake sometimes. It's different when Democrats say it. The reason it's different when Democrats say it is that Democrats have the media on their side. So when a Republican says the fake news coverage is slanted against us, that's different from the Democrats saying that, because Republicans don't really have news outlets and Democrats have all of the news outlets. Same goes for polling, same goes for any aspect of American political propaganda. The polls are often right. When they are wrong, they generally are wrong in a way that favor Democrats. So when you've got polls coming out, economic indicators coming out, statistics from all the social scientists coming out that do not look good for Democrats, and when you hear this being reported by Democrat liberal news outlets, you know these people are really, really in trouble, because they all have every single incentive to paint the Democrats in as good a light as possible. And that's just not going to cut it these days, because everyone knows that the economy is in the doldrums. Also borne out by even more surveys that Biden will conveniently say are fake. According to a new survey just came out, confidence in Biden's economic stewardship is historically low. This, according to Gallup. Americans are less optimistic about the state of the U.S. economy than they have been in recent months, and that's in large part because of concerns about inflation persisting. Really, really bad stuff. And inflation and the economy, both right there at the top of people's concerns. So what is Biden going to do? Biden can't focus on his economic wins because he doesn't have any, so he's got to focus on other things. The only rational strategy for the Biden campaign and the Democrats is to distract Americans from the issues that they care about, where uniformly the Democrats are failing, to issues that Americans don't care about quite as much, but where Democrats can at least gin up ideological resentments. That is why you were seeing a big focus on the liberationist rhetoric and especially the People are going to hold their positions on those sorts of issues, no matter the outcome. And so that is where Biden is going to have to focus. And even that, frankly, is probably not a winning strategy for Democrats. We'll talk about that in 1 second. First, though, I got to talk to you about Pure Talk. Go to puretalk.com/Knowles. Once again, Pure Talk is investing in their customers with their own money and without charging you an extra penny. I'm happy to announce that Pure Talk is now providing international roaming to over 50 countries. As you plan your summer travel, make sure your wireless provider has you covered at home and abroad. Pure Talk already puts you on America's most dependable 5G network, but now they're offering coverage in over 50 countries as well. Enjoy the freedom of unlimited talk, text, and ample 5G data for just $20 a month with Pure Talk. This is a deal that is hard to beat, costs you less than half of what you would pay with other networks. Not only is their U.S. customer service team ready to assist you with a seamless switch, but they also have fantastic savings on the latest iPhones and Androids. Are you ready to make a smart switch? Join my cell phone company. I don't own it, but I use it. Got the service, got the phone. It's Pure Talk. Start saving today. Visit puretalk.com/Knowles to explore their offers. When you make the switch, you'll enjoy an additional 50% off your first month. Do not miss out on the opportunity to save on wireless at home and abroad. puretalk.com/Knowles. That's puretalk.com/Knowles. The Democrats think if they can focus on sex stuff, that is going to save them from their terrible economic and foreign policy and national security and immigration and performance on all of the other issues that really matter to people. I'm skeptical of that. And the reason I'm skeptical of that is videos like this one that have just gone viral. There's a video going around of a man who thinks he's a... And we're going to allow these guys to purchase kids. Really, really bad stuff. Speaking of Gnostic fads, the denial of physical reality, there is a real creepy iPad commercial that has just been pushed by Apple. I don't know really what the marketing people at Apple were thinking here. This has also gone viral. Even those who don't examine the implicit ideology of this commercial all the way down to the very last detail recognize something is real creepy going on here. If you're just listening to this on audio or radio, you'll see it's a big studio. Music studio, a nice trumpet, some televisions, a piano, a lamp, a drawing desk, some speakers, paint, everything just being crushed down by some giant press, like in Star Wars in the garbage compactor. A little sculpture model, vinyl records, television exploding, cameras, a guitar just being smushed, books, paint, little toy with eyeballs just explodes. And then we have
is also the thinnest.
The iPad. The new iPad Pro. When Apple launched, they had their 1984 style advertisement. Apple's going to say, think different. We're going to throw a wrench at Big Brother who's trying to make us all conform and just bring us all down into this uniform kind of bland world. Well, now Apple it's been around long enough. It's taking the other side of that commercial. It's now on the Big Brother side. What did Apple think when they were making this? Apple thought that it's really, really cool that we don't need stuff anymore. You don't need a trumpet. You don't need a TV. You don't need books. You don't need a drawing desk. You don't need sculptures. You don't need toys. You don't need anything. You can replace all the stuff in your life with a little slate tablet on which you can rent and stream a digital simulacrum of everything you enjoy. I was talking to Jeremy about this ad the other day, and Jeremy said, in the first cut of that, they had a Bible in there. because you can get your Bible on your iPad, right? Said, well, actually, maybe we shouldn't smush the Bible. You have to assume, because they had everything else. So why don't people like this? I think it's kind of cool. When I travel now, I don't even take a laptop. I take an iPad because when you have an iPad, they let you keep writing during takeoff and landing on an airplane, so it saves me time when I'm running late on my speeches. But also because I can fit a lot on there. And I can keep my books on there, and I can stream baseball on there, and I can watch my political content, and I can write, and I can do everything on there, right? But I don't want to just have an iPad. I want to have my musical instruments, and I want to have my books, and I want to have my desk, and I want to have my colors, and I want to have my toys, and I want to have... Why don't people like this? Because we live in an incarnate world. That's why. Because we're physical, and we live in time and space, and we form connections to things. And we don't want to be materialists. We don't want to lose sight of eternity. We don't want to forget about the metaphysical things that physical things signify. But neither do we want to just pretend that our bodies don't matter and we're just ideas floating in space. We're not. We are not. That's something we're learning out of the trans ideology. That's something we're learning out of the technological futurism that our elites keep pushing on us. The physical world keeps pulling us back. There's something in our nature, because we're not just disembodied spirits, because we are bodies as well. We like physical stuff. Buy physical stuff, folks. Keep your physical stuff. Keep your books. Keep your instruments. Not just because the elites want to take it away from you and make sure that you own nothing and are happy, but also because physical things are necessary for our functioning, because we are in part physical. This is the point. To take it all the way to the religious level, this is the purpose of sacraments and sacramentals. Sacraments are outward signs of inner realities. Sacraments like baptism, the Holy Communion, matrimony, marriage for that matter. They're physical signs of an interior sort of change. And sacramentals, things like holy water and rosaries and all sorts of little physical expressions of our spiritual life. Why do we have them? Is it totally extraneous? Well, what is it unnecessary? Why do they persist throughout history? Because we are bodies in part, okay? And to quote Tertullian, the ancient Christian writer, the flesh, physical things are so important that the flesh is the very hinge of salvation. Speaking of salvation, you ought to check out John Paul the Great Catholic University. Go to jpcatholic.edu/Knowles. Liberal-controlled universities and entertainment establishments are two of the biggest battlegrounds for the health and sanity of our culture. John Paul the Great Catholic University in Escondido, California, offers a non-woke alternative. JP Catholic gives creative conservatives hands-on training in their craft alongside a robust liberal arts education. JP Catholic offers programs in film production, animation, screenwriting, music design, and even video games, forming the next generation of creative professionals who will bring truth, beauty, and goodness to the entertainment industry. If you are not looking for a degree but want to sharpen your skills, JP Catholic also offers free online courses. Right now, JP Catholic is offering our listeners a full application fee waiver at jpcatholic.edu/Knowles, KNWLES. Applications are still open for this fall with generous scholarships available. Pursue excellence in your creative craft without sacrificing your values. jpcatholic.edu/Knowles, KNOWLES. That is jpcatholic.edu/Knowles. My favorite comment yesterday is from Kim McNatt 6301, who says, Hillary Clinton's musical should be named Insuffs. You've set off my allergies, my lungs filled with liquid and rocks in this very highly pollinated time in Nashville. But that pun was just too good. That was a big mistake. Hillary named her musical Suffs after the Suffs. It really should be Insuffs. It's kind of like a Norm joke, you know. I think it's chairman of the board, BORED. That's right. Good pun. I like a good pun. It's not even Tee-hee-hee Tuesday, and I get a good pun. Speaking of changing attitudes, here's a little bit of a deep cut for some of the political nerds out here. Politico article. FreedomWorks is closing and blaming Trump. Now, for the younger politicos in the audience, you might not even remember FreedomWorks. I remember FreedomWorks because FreedomWorks was a very, very prominent right-wing organization when I was first coming up in politics, when I was working on my first political campaign, which was the challenger campaign for Nan Hayworth running for Congress in the Hudson Valley. It was really big during the presidential election of 2012 when I was working on a few campaigns. It was a libertarian organization, but it had a lot of power on the right, and it would fund candidates, and candidates would seek their endorsement. Now it's going out of business. Why? Because that style of libertarianism is deader than disco. Here is how Politico puts it. After Trump took control of the conservative movement, Brandon said, the head of FreedomWorks, said, a huge gap opened up between the libertarian principles of FreedomWorks leadership and the MAGA-style populism of its members. Notice, it's not a huge gap opened up between the libertarian principles of FreedomWorks and the MAGA populism of other parts of the conservative movement. No. It was within the FreedomWorks organization. The leadership of it, very libertarian, very, very bow tie, very tweed. The base of that organization, the actual rank and file members, they went along with MAGA-style populism. This happened during the Tea Party. The Tea Party leadership, very libertarian, very Beltway. But I don't even mean to knock the libertarians. There are lots of different groups in the Beltway. I just mean they were very wonky bow tie. And the Tea Party rank and file, they went along with that for a little bit, and the fiscal responsibility and the return to constitutionalism. But they were animated by passions that were not always totally in conformity with those libertarian principles. And frankly, those passions were probably more in touch with the political realities of America than the supposedly rational libertarian principles of the leadership. So it goes on. FreedomWorks leaders, for example, still believed in free trade, small government with a robust merit-based immigration system. Increasingly, however, those positions clashed with the Trump-aligned membership who called for tariffs on imported goods and a wall to keep immigrants out, but were willing, in Brandon's view, to remain silent as Trump's administration added $8 trillion in national debt. A lot of our base aged, says Brandon. So the new activists that have come in with Trump, they tend to be much more populist. So you look at the base, and that just kind of shifted. Very true. There are going to be the bitter clingers, to use a Beltway phrase. They're going to be the people who refuse to acknowledge this change or refuse to accept this change. And they're going to say that this is an abandonment of conservative, they're not even really conservative, of libertarian principles, but they call them conservative principles. This is a total betrayal of everything we stood for, and I will not have it, these evil populists, these rudderless populists. It's just a generational thing, man. FreedomWorks had its heyday 10 years ago, maybe even a little bit before that. And then politics changed and the organization did not change. This happens in politics, even among principled people. President Trump's version of conservatism is a little different from Ronald Reagan's. It's not totally different. In many ways, Trump is the heir to Reaganism and can more plausibly claim that than, say, certainly than George H.W. Bush, who was Reagan's vice president, maybe more than George W. Bush or Mitt Romney or any of the others. But Trump's a little different from Reagan. And you know, Reagan was different from Eisenhower. And Eisenhower was different from Calvin Coolidge. And Calvin Coolidge was different from Theodore Roosevelt. And the Republican Party changes. And even the conservative movement within the Republican Party changes. That's what happens because politics is not abstracted out of the body and out of time and space. It's not Gnostic, okay? It's not, we're so given over to Gnosticism these days, but it's very much entwined with bodies and people and time and space and changing circumstances. So a better way to think about politics is it's not just some eternal thing that you write out in 5 bullet points on a napkin and it never changes. Neither is politics totally beholden to the spirit of the age. We know either from Fulton Sheen or Ronald Knox or, I don't know, Dean Inge or one of those smart religious guys, that if you wed yourself to the spirit of the age, you'll find yourself a widow in the next. A clear way of thinking about politics for me is that politics is the application of eternal principles to constantly changing circumstances. And if you don't accept the fact of those changing circumstances, one of the few constants in life is change. If you don't accept that, you're going to get left behind and your organization is going to fall apart. Now, speaking of pro-tariff Republicans, one of the most pro-tariff Republicans is Peter Navarro, who is an economic advisor to President Trump. And Peter Navarro has been thrown in prison by our Democrat establishment for no reason other than to persecute anyone who was around Trump and who was really a threat to the establishment, in particular around Trump. So Matt Gaetz, conservative member of Congress, just requested an interview with Peter Navarro in prison. And we can interview people who are in prison. Journalists can. Certainly, you would imagine members of Congress can. That request was just denied.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to alert this House of the actions of the Federal Bureau of Prisons, which seem to be vindicating the claim made by Peter Navarro that he is being held as a political prisoner. I've been trying for 5 weeks to be able to interview Mr. Navarro. And there are provisions that ought to allow this, and I was informed directly by Director Peters, who runs the Bureau, that request would be denied. And the reason it's being denied is because Peter Navarro is too notorious to be interviewed by a member of Congress. John Gotti was interviewed when he was in prison. The QAnon shaman was interviewed in prison. Director Peters herself brought NBC News through prisons to showcase the work of corrections that's being done. So I think there is something else afoot here. Mr. Navarro, I'm being told, is not being allowed to access his attorney, and it is because it is shameful what has been done to Peter Navarro based on a sham January 6th committee and a sham indictment and a sham conviction that we ought to work to remediate immediately upon President Trump's rightful and righteous return to office. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back.
Here. I love his point when he says, John Gotti was interviewed in prison. You're telling me that a pro-tariff economic advisor to the former president of the United States is more notorious and dangerous than the head of the New York mafia? And the answer from the political establishment is yes. Most certainly yes. John Gotti, he's a street thug. Peter Navarro, the leaders who are threatening a new and more vibrant and more perhaps effective conservatism. Oh, yeah, we can't have that. Before we get into mailbag, I do have to mention, speaking of members of Congress, my own member of Congress, my friend Andy Ogles, has just introduced a bill alongside Representatives Randy Weber and Jeff Duncan in response to the campus intifada. And so what I'm laughing even thinking about it. What Andy told Fox News Digital is students have abandoned their classes to harass other students and disrupt campus-wide activities, including commencement ceremonies. Enough is enough. This is why I introduced legislation to send any person convicted of unlawful activity on the campus of an American university since October 7th, 2023, to Gaza to complete a minimum of 6 months of community service. So I don't know if it's going to pass. You know, Republicans have a thin majority in the House, but I do get a real kick out of this idea that if you're, one of these keffiyeh-wearing campus intifada people and you break the law, not just that you protest, but you actually break the law, as many of them are doing, then you can serve out your community service in Gaza. You'll get exactly what you want. You'll get to go help out in Gaza. You said the reason you're doing the act. What I love about this is not just that it's punishing these communists who today are taking on a kind of Islamist flavor, but yesterday they were BLM people. The day before that, they were Occupy Wall Street people. Tomorrow, they're going to be something else. The thing I like about it is the poetic justice of it. They're getting what they want. They want to help out in Gaza. Okay, they can go help out in Gaza, but they don't really want to help out in Gaza. Just like BLM never wanted to help black people, just like Occupy Wall Street never wanted to. Maybe they did want to upend our economic system, but they didn't want to help people who were actually hurting in any tangible way. I don't think they were giving very much money to charity or volunteering at the food pantry. They love humanity in the abstract. They don't care about humans all that much in particular. And so this bill addresses an even bigger problem than, campus radicalism or anti-Semitism or what communism, I don't know, whatever else that these people are embracing as a matter of ideology. The even more urgent problem than that is the slacktivism. this dishonesty, even in the performance of our political order. They go out there, they throw on the keffiyeh that they bought on Amazon. They probably don't even know where Gaza is on the map. They shut down classes, they scream at people, they harass people, in some cases they physically injure people, and then they go home, and the Gazans are no better off for it. Okay, you want to help? Go help. Let's go solve that slacktivism, baby. You live in time and space. You got a body. Go put it to use. You don't get to do all your activism in the abstract from a cafe outside of Columbia University. Now, a message from our friend Adam Carolla.
Catch the series premiere of Mr. Burcham this Sunday, 9 o'clock, 8 Central, exclusively on DailyWire Plus. Episode 1 is streaming for free, so no excuses, people. Mr. Burcham is decades in the making, and now it's showtime.
Let me be clear. Like me, Wood doesn't care about your feelings. If you hurt Wood, Wood will hurt you back. Wood doesn't discriminate. Wood's only true enemy is the donkey. Bentley.
Can I go to the bathroom.
Pee before class, donkey.
Remember, Mr. Burcham's series premiere this Sunday, 9 o'clock, 8 Central. Stream it free only on DailyWire Plus.
Now, I was a tease earlier. I mentioned that I want to get to the story of Princeton libs who are going on a hunger strike, crying about how hungry they are. That's what I teased at the top of the show. Well, you know me, I'm a tease. And I guess we're going to have to wait to get to it until Monday. It's okay, you're going to have to wait. Because right now is my favorite time of the week when I get to hear from you in the mailbag. Our mailbag is sponsored by Pure Talk. Go to puretalk.com/Knowles, K-N-O-W-L-E-S. Right now, our listeners can get an additional 50% off their first month. That is puretalk.com/Knowles. Take it away.
Salutations, Mr. Knowles. I just recently turned 21 years old, and I have never dated before. And that is, in fact, for lack of trying, because I've spent basically the entirety of my life under the assumption that to be in a relationship with a woman is to be absolutely miserable no matter what. Mostly because this is what I grew up with. My dad working 60 plus hours a week, coming home and essentially falling asleep before he even sat down at the table to have supper. And a mother who was angry at him the whole time because that's just how she is. So with that, I've recently come to the realization that my mother is not the rule, but rather the exception. So how exactly do I get myself out of this operation where if I see a girl that I'm attracted to, I instantly avoid her as best I can? Whatever advice you can give me would be great. Thanks.
First thing you got to do is quit blaming your mother. Maybe you have a difficult mother. Many people have had difficult mothers in the past. I'm not denying that reality. But if you want to embrace the trad life, meaning you want to reject feminism, meaning you think a man ought to be the head of his household, meaning you want to return to the ways of living and relations of the sexes back when they were normal and good and before men became just uniformly satyrs and women became uniformly prostitutes on the internet. If you want to return to that kind of life, then you need to really do it. You know, is the man the head of his household? Well, then the man can't let his wife push him around, okay? And so I'm not blaming your father and I'm not letting your mother off the hook here. I'm just saying, when I mention this kind of very traditional advice, there are some people, like in the red pill community or whatever, who say, Michael, you're letting women off the hook. You're a simp. You sound like a feminist. Quite the opposite. I'm saying a man has a right and, in fact, a responsibility to not let his wife push him around. His wife might want to push him around, and that's not going to make her happy. It's definitely not going to make him happy. It's not going to make the kids happy. So a husband has an obligation to love his wife, and part of loving your wife is leading your household and saying, like, no, honey, calm down, cut it out, enough, no more, you know, and because if you don't do that, then there's going to be this constant tension and tug of war. And as you say, it could make your life miserable. So that's the first part. I would even avoid this thought of, I just got to make sure I don't get a bad woman like that woman. I need to get a good woman. Well, yeah, it's true. Some women are better than others, no doubt about it. But you have a role in this. Human beings are mimetic. We imitate one another. To use modern lingo, we flow and vibe off each other's energy, man. So you need to set the tone as the man. All right. So all of that said, how do you go about getting a girl? Well, first you find a girl that you desire and try to make sure that your desires are well ordered, because we live in a world where all the guys are looking at porn and stuff, and people's priorities are a little skewed. And why that's really dangerous at this moment that you're talking about is it could twist your desires to attract you to girls that are not going to make you happy in the long run, or that will be more difficult to husband. So make sure that your desires are broadly in the right place. And then, find a girl that you think is cute and attractive, and then ask her on a date, and then pay for the date and open the door and pull her chair out, and, be the kind of man who you believe would attract the kind of woman that you want to be with. Because if you act like the kind of man that attracts the kind of woman you don't want to be with, that's going to put you in a very bad situation, okay? And then recognize that it's fun. Your experience seeing your parents bickering when you were growing up is that dating is tedious and bad and unpleasant, and it's fun, man. It's fun. If you do the right thing and you behave as you want to do, and you have the courage and the backbone to, really go for it and go ask the girl out, go kiss the girl, pick up the tab, whatever, lead in the relationship. It's a great deal of fun. The way modern people, young people talk about dating, it's like it's a chore. It's fun, man. Girls are hot, like going out and getting drinks and dinner is enjoyable. And then I'm not suggesting you do anything that is untoward, but once you get married, that's fun too, man. It's, don't suppress your desire, follow your desire in a good and ordered way, then lead your woman. Okay, next question.
Hey, Michael. So I know you've always talked about the importance of marrying young, and not everybody, of course, but just as a concept. And basically, here's my question. So I'm 20 years old, and I've been dating this girl for almost 3 years now. We share religious beliefs, life goals, and all that good stuff. I've known for a while that she is the one, and I would like to approach her father soon about asking for her hand. However, her father dated his wife for like 10 years and got married like late 30s, something like that. So I have a feeling that he'll be hesitant, saying that we're super young. And I know that most of the world would probably view it this way. Even though I do know that I will be able to financially provide for a family within the same time frame. Basically, I'm just asking for advice on how you would advise me to approach him about this and help him to understand my point of view. I'll take any advice that you have. Thank you for your help and for all that you do for us.
Great question. The problem you're having is that on certain crucial matters, such as this one, the Zoomers are much more conservative than the Boomers. And it's weird because you think the older generation is going to be more conservative than the younger, but on these kinds of issues, the Zoomers are much more right-wing. So you have to be the rebel by returning to tradition and to norms of behavior, whereas the father here who's blessing your asking, he's going to say, no, you guys should just date around forever and then live together for a little bit and have my daughter be your concubine, and that'll be cool. So, you're just going to have a mismatch here. Take him out, buy him breakfast or lunch or something, and just lean into that role. You are being very respectful here, and you're doing the traditional thing. And I would be firm on your point, but not in any way combative. You are in this strange position from a position of respect and humility. You actually have to educate the boomer about how relations between the sexes have always worked. And you're asking him for something, and so you're being respectful, but you need to be able to articulate exactly why you want to do this thing and why it is better than what the boomers did. And you need to do it in a way that's not offensive to him. I think that can be done. But it's like St. Peter tells us in Scripture, you need to be able to give an account of the joy that lives within you, including in this particular aspect of it, which is the relation between the sexes and marriage, which is a symbol of Christ's love for his church. Next question.
Hey, Michael. Love the show. I've noticed in church more and more recently that people don't really care about the doctrine, but are instead there for the community/social aspect. Part of me wants to believe that this is a bad thing, because society as a whole has lost touch with doctrinal concepts. And I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this. Thank you very much for taking my question. Again, love the show.
Sure. Difficult for me to totally resonate with this because I go to a parish that is rather doctrinal, and the homilies are really high level exegesis and theology. So it's kind of academic in that way. And yet it's also the most thriving parish community I've ever been a part of. So I think actually the two can go together when the doctrine is really good. And, so maybe you could go even further, and find a church that's really, really, high level on the doctrine. Maybe the community would be even stronger than at the one that you're seeing. But you're not going to a university lecture. A lot of people mistake church for a university lecture. That's certainly not how the Catholics view it. The Catholics, we go, even if the homily is terrible, we're going there for the sacrifice of the Mass, the Holy Eucharist. And because it is an obligation and it's the worship of God. But it's worship. It's not, the priest is not there to teach us something. We are there to worship God as the priest leads us in the celebration of the Mass. So, if you're getting bad teaching or weak teaching or whatever, well, I don't know, go read a book, or go watch a lecture on YouTube or something. That's not what you are there to worship, and worship is a corporate event. Not corporate like Bain Capital or something. Corporate meaning you're in the body of Christ and there are multiple people there. So I wouldn't knock the communal aspect of it. If you think that it's shallow and you're not really worshiping God, that would be a reason to find another church perhaps. But there you'll probably find when all the pistons are firing, right, you'll find that the community is even more vibrant. It's not that it's less pronounced, it's even more pronounced. The rest of the show continues now. You do not want to miss it. Become a member. Use code Knowles, KNWLES at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans.